Okay, today we're going to be talking about Sevita. So we'll be spoiling After the Cure, a little bit of Poveglia, and the 40th day. So if you haven't finished the series, you might want to skip this one. Sevita is the second character in the series of the only two that is actually based on somebody that I know, personality and everything. She's based on an old roommate of mine who I really hope is out there somewhere being a journalist because that's what she really wanted to do. And I hope she's having a really good and happy life because she was a good person and she deserves it. Um, anyhow, that is where she comes from and is basically wholly based on that person. She was originally meant to be the main character, as we talked about in earlier videos. Nella was going to be the doctor that was treating Dr. Pozzo and Anne Connolly. The original story was not meant to have um, the twist with Dr. Pozzo or um, the second version of the bacteria. It was solely meant to be discovering how this happened and getting ready for the trial, basically. And so um, Sevita was going to find out what had happened with the help of Nella. But the more that farther I got into the story, the more I realized that there's no way that he would tell them what I needed them to know for the story to work. So that's why it changed, and I really do regret that. Just because I liked Savita's character so much, I really did want her to be the main character, which is kind of why the 40th day and Poveglia are really her story and her story conclusions. Or her and Christine's, I should say. By the 40th day, she's already gone. But, yeah, I wanted to write her story specifically when I started this. So, um, I'm glad I got to revisit her a little bit and again in this new project that you're very close to finding out about, you will see more of her. Um, and I'll tell you how tomorrow actually. She uh, again was always meant to be a journalist. Um, Christine and her were in the version that I started because I got about, I would say, halfway through what that story was meant to be before I changed. She and Christine were meant to meet at Dr. Pozzo's lab when they discovered it, so that would have been the love story in that book. So, again, we get a little more of their love story in this new project we'll talk about. So I am glad that I got to redo that. She is, like I said, she's based on a roommate, but she has some traits from some other very strong people in my life that I admire. She has my mother's recklessness, I would say. Um, and one of my best friends from high school's, um, like, kindness. Like, she looks out for her friends. She looks out for Nella. She looks out for Savita. She starts looking out for Frank. And that very meddlesome but endearing quality is from one of my best friends in high school. The rest of her personality is totally that roommate's. Um, she is like when at the end when she's hesitant about the baby that's coming and she starts taking care of the little girl right before she and the little girl pass away, and she has those thoughts about being a mom. That was me. That was my worries about being a mother. Even though I already was at this point, but I was remembering, how scared I was in the beginning. So that is where that came from. I wanted her to be the brave one. Basically, I wanted her to be unafraid of the governor and the city and what could happen. I don't know if enough of the city's like oppression came across in the first series. I don't mean for it to be like a super dystopian. I just mean for it to be flawed, and I don't know if that came across quite the way that I wanted it to. I've gotten better at that in the past several years. Um, but she was meant to be like the lone character that wasn't afraid to stand up to the governor, which I kind of gave a little bit of that quality to Melissa in The Cured, but that was kind of the role I wanted her to play. She also, in the original version, was not afraid of Pazzo at all, and Nella kind of was, and a little bit still is in the current version. So she was just because this roommate of mine was so very, I should say, is so very brave. I wanted to reflect that, confidence and forthrightness in Sevita. Um, we've talked about her a lot, so I don't know that there's a ton to say. Um, there's a like I said, I can't say a lot more without spoiling too much of the project. I will say, so in the end scene when she's going back to get ready to see Christine for the last time, um, she melts drops a piece of candle on the floor and carves her name in it, which I don't think it's picking up on camera, but that's what that is. Um, and just says Savita loved you. And like I said earlier, my major in college was canceled, and I ended up going into anthropology. And big part of that was archaeology. And I've always thought what we leave behind is really important, especially in a world that you know is dying in this case in the After the Cure books. That even though maybe, especially at the very end, with the city being gone, maybe nobody's ever gonna see what Savita left or know that she mattered, but it's still important that she did leave it. So that was what that scene was about. I am tearing up right now talking about it. um, I I think in the original series that um, she and Christine, I really missed the mark with them, and I wanted to tell more of their stories, and there was more written. So I'm really glad that I got to revisit some of it. As much as I love Noah and Frank, my first love obviously was Savita, and I think that I would like to write her character like her again, and probably will some point. But she's really special to me. So anyway, that's probably enough about Savita. If you have more questions about her, though, feel free to ask. Again, we've talked about her a bunch in other videos, so um, and that leads us to the very last page, which is actually the last payment. Let's celebrate Bill from Henry's story in The Cured. But the only reason I put that in there is to remind me that tomorrow we'll be talking about the new project. And I'm so super excited to tell you about it finally. So I will see you tomorrow, and we will talk about what you are about to get as a story. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.